Hello, and welcome to a Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness video, where today we'll be completing the game with just a Mawile. And while I've never actually used one of these, I did see a couple comments of people wanting to see it, so it's gotta be pretty good, right? Well, for base stats, Mawile has 50 HP, 85 attack, 85 defense, 55 special attack, 55 special defense, and 50 speed, and gets access to mostly normal and dark type moves. However, it does get Flamethrower and Ice Beam, which is decent type coverage. Unfortunately, because of that low special attack stat, they're not going to be as effective as they could be, but any type coverage is good type coverage, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Our Mawile in particular has a bold nature, raising its defense and lowering its attack stat. Okay, well that's not great, but the extra defense might come in handy later on. It gets access to the Intimidate ability, lowering the attack stat of all opposing Pokemon on switch-in. However, it could also have Hyper Cutter, which would prevent my attack being lowered, but I did a coin flip and got Intimidate, and according to Bulbapedia, it only gets Astonish and Fake Tears by level 10. So with that, let's go ahead and get right into it. And the first thing I do is run into a battle with a Swablu that I can't touch with a ghost type attack. So I had to use up all my PP. I do actually win this fight, but I need to go teach Mimic just so I have something in case this happens again, until level 11 when I get Bite. And honestly, the early game wasn't too bad because I'm a Steel type and most Pokemon still are using normal type moves, and on top of that, Bite's just a pretty solid move overall. Even with my low special attack stat, I'm up against pretty weak Pokemon at this point, so it's not too bad. However, as you can see, many Pokemon aren't a one-shot with Bite, even at level 13. So I could see this being an issue going forward until I get a decent physical move. Anyway, in just a couple hits, I'll take down the Shroomish and beat the old man. So overall, not too bad for the early game, so let's go ahead and move right along to the Power Rangers. In this case, I decide to fight Purple because he's got poison moves and I am immune to all poison attacks. So it just makes sense to go with Purple first. And time to commence just a little bit of rambling. Sorry it took about a week for this video to come out. Time has been real slim, and Mawile took a little bit longer than I thought it would. So yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, we're in the new year now. Woohoo! And I only really got one goal for this year, and that's to just keep this channel growing. Now, I do really like the community we got here. So thank you to everyone who's been commenting and liking and watching these videos in general. Even those of you who don't comment, I'm one of you. I don't comment on videos ever, which is probably why it was kind of a hard thing for me to actually start replying to comments in my own comment section. But anyway, thanks so much for watching these videos. If you do have any Pokemon suggestions, consider putting them down below. And with that, Grimer's only one more bite away from going down, and we beat Purple. We go inside the building, and at level 21, I learn Vice Grip, which I teach over Fake Tears. I catch the Numel here for the Charcoal item to raise firepower, and I catch the Carvana to raise the power of Bite with the black glasses, and we go into the fight against Loverina. She leads with the Love Disc and a Beautifly. I intimidate both of them. I go for Bite into the Love Disc, but I aim slower, and Beautifly's going for Thief. Luckily that doesn't really do any damage. Another Water Gun, go for Vice Grip, which also doesn't take down the Love Disc. Now I go for one last Vice Grip to take it down, and then out comes her second Pokemon, which is Roselia. Now Roselia is always a threat because it can set up Leech Seeds, so I need to flinch it with a Bite, and hopefully take it down with Vice Grip. It's not quite enough to take it down, it sets up its Leech Seed, which is really unfortunate because even though I take down the Roselia here, it's going to move that Leech Seed onto the Delcatty, which is her strongest Pokemon and her Shadow Pokemon. So it gets a little bit of health, and Shadow Wave takes me down. So that was a not so great first attempt. So here we are on the third attempt now. And I go for Vice Grip, which is now doing half to Love Disc with just a little bit of training. And for some reason the Beautifly is now started using Gust, which I'm going to Mimic to use against Roselia because it's a much better move for it. And I go for Vice Grip to finish off the Love Disc. And then I decide not to learn Baton Pass. Out comes Roselia. And Beautifly's gusts really aren't doing that much damage. I go for a gust, which does take it down in a single hit. Out comes Delcatty. Now, because it is quite tanky, I am going to just use Bite against it and hope for flinches. So the first one doesn't get a flinch, but the Shadow Waves aren't really doing that much damage to me. Another Bite, and no flinch. Okay, well, I know I'm going to be able to take it out this turn, and I doubt the Beautifly can do enough damage to finish me off. So I go for Gust, and it hangs on by a thread. Okay, well, one more Gust should finish it off, and I beat Liverine on the third attempt. Not too bad. And of course, you can't have a Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness video without the obligatory Mirror-Bee. Hello, Mirror-Bee, how you doing? Anyway, at level 36, I get the move Crunch, which I'm going to teach over Astonished. And, oh, hello, other Mawile. Well, luckily I'm strong enough to probably take it down. Unless I'm not. Okay, well, bye, other Mawile. Anyway, at the Real Gam Tower, I pick up my two favorite TMs, Hidden Power and Protect. And I'm going to go ahead and teach Hidden Power right away, which happens to be Hidden Power Ground, which is really helpful because at the moment I don't have anything to hit Steel types, and so this is my best move for that. And it's 50 base power, so not amazing, but it'll do. And at the Tutor Lady, I pick up Body Slam, all before going to Snaddle, who leads with a Lantern and a Quagsire. I go for Hidden Power Ground, which isn't quite a one-shot on the Lantern, and Quagsire hits me with a Rock Tomb, lowering my speed. Another Hidden Power finishes it off, out comes Lunatone, and then another Rock Tomb hits. It's only 80% accurate, so there's a good chance it will miss. Crunch doesn't quite take down the Lunatone in a single hit, which is really unfortunate, so it's able to set up Shadow Sky. I go for another Crunch to take it down, but those Shadow Waves are pretty strong and it takes me down to half health. Out comes Cast Form. Fruity Pebbles rain down, doing damage to all. I go for Body Slam. It hits me with Weather Ball because it's faster than me, and Body Slam's not enough to take it down either, which is quite unfortunate. More Fruity Pebbles. And I decide to switch targets over to the Quagsire to see if a Body Slam will be able to take it down from that amount of health, which it doesn't. Not even close. And Fruity Pebbles finished me off. Okay, well, after a little bit of Mount Battle training, I'm now at level 47. I go back in and I'm able to take down the Lantern in a single hit. Out comes Lunatone. Rock Tomb still hits me, unfortunately. But I am still faster than Lunatone, so I'm able to take it down with a single Crunch. Another Rock Tomb hits me, so unfortunately I am slower than the Cast Form. But I am faster than the Quagsire. I go for Bite, which doesn't flinch. I get hit again. Water Pulse now, which could confuse me. I take down the Quagsire with the second Bite, and then out comes Matang, his final Pokemon. Water Pulse again. Doesn't confuse. Thunder Punch doesn't paralyze. I take down the Cast Form with a Body Slam, and then all that's left is Matang. I go for Hidden Power, which doesn't quite one-shot it, but Thunder Punch can't do enough damage to take me down, and I beat Snaddle. On the SS Libra, I go ahead and teach the move Flamethrower over Crunch, and move right along to the battle against Gonzap. Now he leads with an Electrode and a Nuzleaf, and as usual, Nuzleaf always goes for Fake Out on the first turn, and it seems that the Electrode is going for Sonic Boom every time, so it is going to be doing 20 damage every turn. Luckily, Hidden Power Ground does take it down in a single hit. Nuzleaf swaps over to Hyper Beam, and will continue to do that from here on out. Flamethrower takes down the Vileplume in a single hit. Out comes Whiscash. Now, I don't think I'm able to take that down in a single hit, so I go for Bite, which gets a crit, but still doesn't take it down. Water Pulse comes out. Doesn't confuse me, so I go for Body Slam to finish it off, and then out comes his final Pokemon, which is Skarmory. I go for Flamethrower to take it down, and then all that's left is the Nuzleaf, which hits me with one last really weak Hyper Beam before going down to Flamethrower. And that's Gonzap on the first attempt as well. Well, with nothing really in between, right along to Gorgon, who leads with a Celio and a Lairon. And because Lairon always goes for Protect on the first turn, I go for Body Slam into Celio. It hits me with a pretty weak Earthquake, so I decide to take down the Lairon in this turn. And then out comes Slowking, and the Celio swaps over to Water Pulse, which unfortunately does confuse me. I go for Body Slam to finish it off though. Out comes Ursaring. Slowking hits me with Confusion, doing almost no damage at all. I go for Bite into the Slowking because it's super effective and flinches it. Go for a Body Slam into the Ursaring, which doesn't take it down. Water Pulse doesn't confuse me, I decide to take down the Slowking this turn. And then out comes Primeape, his first Shadow Pokemon. And I go for Flamethrower into it because I know it's not nearly especially defensive. But it actually survives and hits me with a Shadow Storm. Luckily the Ursaring finishes off its own partner with Earthquake. And so Hypno comes out. And I go for Bite into the Hypno, which does get a flinch luckily, otherwise I probably would have lost. I take down the Hypno, and then all that's left is Ursaring, and I survive on 1 HP before I take it down. That was very close, but with that, we're going on to the final area of the game. And even though Mawile's not a top tier time, it is still doing fairly well. So let's see how it does in Citydark Isle, with our first boss fight being a rematch against Lavrina, who leads with a Gorbis and a Gardevoir. And I go for Body Slam to take down the Gardevoir in a single hit, and then out comes Roselia. Gorbis goes for Water Pulse, and will continue to just go for Water Pulse the entire time. I go for Body Slam to take down the Roselia, and then out comes Farfetch'd, another Water Pulse, and a Body Slam that doesn't quite take down Farfetch'd. It does get paralyzed, but it hits me with a Shadow Panic, which confuses me. I go for Body Slam to take it down, and then out comes her final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Altaria. Water Pulses really aren't doing too much damage to me. But unfortunately I ran out of Body Slam PP because I rushed into this fight before healing. And so I have to use Bite to hit the Altaria. But it really doesn't matter anyway because after hitting myself in Confusion twice, I lose. So the solution to this battle was actually pretty simple. I just need to not get confused. Now unfortunately, because I have to take down Gardevoir on the first turn, because it's the opposite gender of me and it'll use Attract, I do have to keep Gorbis alive at least for that long. But then out comes the Roselia, which is also a threat, because it could Leaf Seed me. And then out came the Farfetch'd that I couldn't take down with Body Slam, however Flamethrower is enough to take it down. And then out comes the final Altaria once again. Now Gorbis is a 2-shot with Body Slam unfortunately, so I do risk Confusion Chance a couple more times before it goes down. But all that's left is the Altaria, which is just a 2-shot with Body Slam as well. So it goes down, and that's another third attempt Lavrina. Oh, hello other Mawile. Goodbye other Mawile. Anyway, at the top of the mountain, I run into Nattle once again. He leads with a Matang and a Quagsire. And I go for Body Slam into the Quagsire, which isn't enough to take it down. But another one does the job. And then out comes Scizor. And another Thunder Punch. As long as I don't get paralyzed, Matang isn't a threat. But then I realized that Scizor actually has nothing to hit me super effectively at all, so it's definitely the better thing to keep alive. And so I take down the Matang, and then out comes the Solrock, which I one-shot with Bite. Then out comes Cast Form, which I can just one-shot with a Body Slam. And then out comes his final Pokemon, which is Shadow Starmie. Now, I don't know if I can take this down in a single hit, but it is more physically frail than it is specially, so I go for Body Slam. It takes it down to only half, so I go for Bite into it to finish it off, but Shadow Storm takes me down to 15 health, so unfortunately, I am going to lose. Never mind, I lived on a single HP again, and I take down the Scizor. Well, that was another close battle, but we move on to Ardos, who leads with an Alakazam and a Swallow. And I go for Body Slam to take down the Alakazam immediately because it has Fire Punch and will do a lot of damage to me. Out comes the Kingdra. Now unfortunately the Swallow did set up Shadow Sky, so Fruity Pebbles are going to be raining, so I'm not going to be able to heal. Out comes Heracross. And Hydro Pump really isn't doing that much damage to me. But the problem is that I forgot to teach Protect, so I'm not able to effectively waste all the PP of Hydro Pump. I take down the Heracross with a Flamethrower, and then out comes Electabuzz. And I go for Hidden Power Ground to take it down as well. And then out comes his final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Snorlax. Now this thing hits really hard, so I have to rely on a bit of flinch luck in order to get its health down far enough to where I think Body Slam could take it down. So I go for one and get the flinch. I go for a second one, but I get crit by Hydro Pump and lose. So I go ahead and teach Protect and go back into the fight once again. And the strategy is almost completely the same. I go for Body Slam to take down the Alakazam. Then out comes the Kingdra. Fruity Pebbles rain down. I go for Protect on this turn, just because I don't want to be taking extra damage, and as it turns out, the Swallow decides to go for Shadow Half, which I definitely didn't want to be hit by, so I decided to take down the Swallow now because I don't really want to play the Swallow lottery on whether or not it's going to continue using Shadow Half. Out comes the Heracross once again, which I know goes down to a single Flamethrower, but to keep my health up and to get rid of the Fruity Pebbles a bit sooner, I decide to go for Protect. But a Flamethrower does take down the Heracross, and then out comes Electabuzz, which I already know goes down to a single Hidden Power Ground. But then it decides to use Shadow Half. So now the Kingdra is definitely something I need to get rid of, so I decide to get rid of it. And because Electabuzz and Snorlax are on the field together, Electabuzz is only going to go for Shadow Mist. So I'm free to start attacking the Snorlax with Body Slam. And with my health being as high as it is, Shadow In shouldn't be able to take me down. It takes me down about a third. And a second Body Slam finishes off the Snorlax. Electabuzz wastes this last turn using Shadow Mist. And I use Hidden Power to finish it off. And that's Ardos on the second attempt. Moving right along to Gorgon once again. He leads with an Ursaring and a Slowking. And I go for Bite into the Slowking because it doesn't protect. I go for Protect now to not take extra damage or get confused. And Hidden Power to finish off the Slowking. Then out comes Aggron, which I can either use Hidden Power or Flamethrower to take it down. I decide Flamethrower just because it's got a much lower special defense as compared to its physical defense. But there's a good chance it would have gone down anyway. Then out comes Walrein. Ursaring goes for Earthquake, doing a little bit of damage to its own partner. I go for Body Slam, which doesn't quite take it down. And I go for another Protect here just to heal up some, before finishing it off with a Hidden Power. And then out comes his first Shadow Pokemon, which is a Poliwrath. Now this thing always sets up Shadow Sky on the first turn, so it's not super dangerous immediately. And Earthquake doesn't quite finish it off, unfortunately. So now Fruity Pebbles are up. So I decide to start stalling out the turns of the Fruity Pebbles. That way I can actually start healing soon. I go for Body Slam to finish off the Poliwrath. Out comes Mr. Mime. And Ursaring goes for Slash, doing almost nothing. More Fruity Pebbles. And I go for Protect here. Shadow Storm, Earthquake. Takes the Mr. Mime nearly to half health, but I should be able to take it down now with a single Body Slam. Which it does, and then all that's left is the Ursaring, and its Earthquakes really aren't doing that much damage to me, so Body Slam finishes it off, and I beat Gorgon on the first attempt. Well, moving right along to Eldis, he leads with a Manectric and a Ninjask. Unfortunately, I'm outsped by the Manectric, so it sets up Shadow Sky. But because the Ninjask is going for Dig strats, I don't really need to worry about it until every other turn. And Salamence is going to be a bit of a threat because I don't really have anything to hit it effectively. I go for Body Slam, which is doing a little bit of damage. It does get paralyzed, so hopefully I can get a few paralysis chances. I go for Protect, just to stall off the Fruity Pebbles again. I go for Body Slam, which is taking it down to yellow. And so far it hasn't got paralyzed, unfortunately. Go for another Protect to heal up some. And then another Body Slam, which takes it down to red. And that was the last chance for a paralysis to actually matter. And it didn't get paralyzed a single time. Very unfortunate, but I take it down. And then out comes Flygon. Now this is almost guaranteed to just use Flamethrower because it's super effective. So I go for Body Slam into it, and it's not quite doing half. It also gets paralyzed, but it doesn't get paralyzed for me. And I go for another Body Slam to finish it off, surprisingly. It was still in green health, so must have been a range. Out comes the Marowak. I go for Protect to heal up some before going for Body Slam, which really isn't doing that much damage. It luckily misses the Shadow End. And I decide to swap over to using Flamethrower because that might do a little more damage, which it does. It actually finishes it off. And then all that's left is the Shadow Lapras. Go for Body Slam into it, because it's going to set up Shadow Sky on the first turn. And I'm doing about a third to it, so in a couple more hits it should go down. Shadow Storm comes out, doing quite a lot of damage to me. Fruity Pebbles rain down. Go for another Protect just to stall out the turns of Fruity Pebbles. And another Body Slam should finish off the Lapras, which it does, and then all that's left is the Ninjask, which as long as it doesn't get a crit, I should be fine. Never mind, it's using Silver Wind. Even with the crit, it wasn't enough to take me down. And I beat Eldis on the first attempt. Well, anyway, before we can get to the final boss, we have to beat the big box legendary Shadowlugia, which I seem to only be doing about a third to with Body Slam. So I just have to keep using it. Takes it down to yellow. Another Protect just to heal up a little bit. And Body Slam should finish it off. Unless it hangs on with just a little bit of health. It gets paralyzed luckily, but I decide to just go ahead and take it down and move on to the final battle against Greevil. Now he leads with a Shadow Rhydon and Moltres. I go for Body Slam, which is only doing about half to the Moltres. And Rhydon's going for Shadow Hold. Okay, well that's a bit strange. I take down the Moltres, out comes Executor. And Rhydon hits me with Shadow End, and I lose the first attempt. Well, I decide to go over to the Pyrite Coliseum to go ahead and pick up the TM for Brick Break. And this is quite a few attempts in, and the big reason is to try to take down the Tauros in a single hit. Unfortunately, Brick Break isn't strong enough to do that, so I end up losing this attempt. So after a while, I decide to teach Ice Beam over Flamethrower, and that's because I want to be able to take down the Rhydon, and that's because it's been using Shadow Panic, which is really annoying. And because I taught Ice Beam over Flamethrower, now I have nothing to hit Articuno with effectively, and so I'm having to use Body Slam and Ice Beam to do it, which could get the job done, but I decide to go ahead and go over to the Real Gam Tower and pick up the move Fire Blast, which is a little inaccurate, but it should be able to take down the legendary bird in a single hit. So after just a few more attempts, I end up on this attempt number 21, where I go into the battle, and as you can see here, immediately I get confused, but I'm able to take down the Moltres. Out comes Executor, and Rhydon goes for Shadow Hold, and so I go for Protect here, but I hit myself in confusion, get hit by a Shadow End from the Executor and the Rhydon, which is just a little unlucky. I go for another Protect, and this time I actually get it through the confusion. I go for Ice Beam to take down the Rhydon, and get a crit where I didn't need it. Out comes Tauros. And because of the Intimidate, my Body Slams aren't going to be doing nearly as much damage. But because it wasn't quite a one-shot with Ice Beam or Flamethrower on the Tauros, I decided to use Fire Blast to take it down. Executor hits another Shadow End. I go for Protect to heal up some. And I know for a fact Fire Blast can take down the Articuno in a single hit, and then out comes his final Pokemon, which is Zapdos. Another Shadow End hits, taking me down to 50 health. Another Protect to heal myself up just a bit, and hopefully Ice Beam takes down the Zapdos in a single hit, which it does. And then all that's left is the Executor to finish off. And Ice Beam takes it down. And that's Greevil on the 21st attempt. So, let's see how Mawile did. Well, it beat the game at a time of 12 hours, 1 minute, and 2 seconds at level 92, and fainted 31 times throughout the game, most of those being to Greevil. And only 5 of those being to random trainers, which is pretty good. Now, I do think that Mawile probably could have done better, maybe even up to an hour better, if I had just gotten a little luckier on the confusion, because there were many battles that ended within a minute without taking down a single Pokemon just because I kept hitting myself, and teaching Fire Blast, because I think that that added power was probably necessary for taking down Articuno and probably the Tauros as well, because both Flamethrower and Ice Beam were just leaving it on a sliver. But anyway, Mawile finds itself in the B tier, which isn't too bad, especially considering its pretty low stats, and it's pretty bad move pool in the early game, considering it really only gets normal and dark type moves, other than Astonish, which is really weak. And not very many physical moves until I got Body Slam and a lucky Hidden Power. But anyway, I think even shaving that 30 or so minutes off, it would probably only move up a step or two in the B tier. So I think it's pretty good where it's at. But anyway, if you did enjoy this video, consider liking and subscribing. If you have any Pokemon suggestions, put them down below. I'd love to do them at some point. And thanks for all the support. And hopefully we have another great year. So, thank you so much for watching, and bye.